Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. If ever a name was synonymous with an institution, it would be Tony Severino in Rockhurst High School. He has been there for almost 40 years, just retiring after last football season, won 7 state football titles there, won a state football title at Shawnee Mission Northwest. Before that, making him the only person to win state titles on both sides of the state line, Kansas and Missouri. Heck, you can even throw in the fact that he won a state baseball championship as a coach at Shawnee Mission West as he started their baseball program and won a state championship there. A native of Ohio, he came to Kansas State to play football. He met his wife there, almost returned to Ohio to start his coaching career, but eventually remained here and eventually became the iconic coach at Rockhurst, turning them into a household name as far as football is concerned. He did it with a steady hand and consistency, running the football, stopping the run, but always gaining the respect and admiration of his fellow coaches for his friendly nature, despite his indeed incredibly passionate and competitive nature as well. He's a delightful guy to talk to. He tells many great stories. He's proud of all the players that he's coached. That is the thing that's most near and dear to him. He coached his 3 sons. That's very near and dear to him as well. He often had opportunities to leave Rockhurst, but stayed around and eventually put in almost 40 years at that state line institution. Up next, it's Tony Severino, the iconic Rockhurst football coach, on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed. And if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Visions' goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Tony, you were born in Cleveland and lived there for about 5 years, but moved on up the shoreline a little bit to Euclid, Ohio, a connected suburb. What was life like for young Tony Severino in Euclid, Ohio?
Well, it was my folks were terrific people, and I was the oldest son. I have an older sister and 2 younger brothers, and we were just. My dad was worked at a steel fabricating plant. They had a 10th grade education, fought in the war, and my mom was a homemaker, and it was. And my sister and I went to Catholic grade school, and then I went on to got a scholarship to go to Catholic high school in the middle of the city. So, it was just a normal upbringing, played all the sports, and, my love for football began, I think, with about the first grade when my neighbor across the street used to coach the CYO team, and I used to hitch a ride to him to practice. I lived about not quite a mile from my grade school, and so I would go there to practice with him from the time I was in the first grade.
What were the other sports that you played? People then just played all of them pretty much by the season, but what'd you do in other sports?
Well, I was played for football, basketball, and baseball, and it was interesting because I was all city basketball player, and I when I was in high school, and had a couple looks for some tryouts as a baseball player, basketball and baseball, and were probably the sports I excelled at the most, just because of my size. But then as I got older, and football became the one I knew I was going to get recruited in, and but I played them all. And back then, you went from one sport to the other, and never knew an off season.
Did you, when I talk to many, I mean many professional athletes, they often like another sport than the one that they actually became most proficient in. Did you like football the most, or did you like all of them?
Well, I liked them all. And, like I said, it was a matter of the season, and kind of year to year as I went. As growing up, I was probably more proficient in baseball. And then when I got into about middle of my grade school years, I really started doing a lot of basketball, and I played CYO basketball, CYO football, and so then basketball became a real love of mine. And but I always knew I was going to be a football player, and because I was playing quarterback then, I got basically Cathedral Latin was my high school. It was run by the Marianists, and it's an all-boys Marianist school with 1,200 boys, and it's set right in the middle of the downtown, almost downtown Cleveland. It was kind of in the cultural district, just outside of the district. But I used to take 3 modes of transportation to get there, and but it was well worth it.
So how would you describe maybe a life as a teenager in Euclid? Now, obviously, you're spending a lot of time commuting back and forth to school, but what was life like in that town?
Oh, Euclid is a great town. It's it was kind of a booming suburb back at that time in the mid '50s, but and it grew and it grew and it grew. But it was a typical suburban city as we went. Like I said, we moved from the heart of the city when I was 5. It was typical Italian family. My aunt lived below us. My grandparents lived behind us. My great-grandparents lived 2 doors down. Everybody was in the same neighborhood. My grandfather was a barber down in the city. So it was a pretty typical Italian family growing up.
And how did that change a little bit when you moved to the suburbs? Were your other relatives around there too?
Yeah, that kind of changed. We all kind of, my aunt had moved out on the west side, and my grandparents moved kind of with us. They moved 2 doors down. I always knew my grandparents were going to. They moved 2 doors down after a while. They lived in South Euclid for a while after they moved from the city. So we all kind of migrated out, and in the end, my mom's parents lived 2 doors down from us, and so we still were kind of in the same neighborhood.
How would you describe your parents' relationship and their relationship with you?
They were the best. Everything that my parents did was about family, and like I said, my dad would drive me down to my basketball games in the city, and it was he and I a lot of times in the car because, like I said, I went to school. It was probably 20 miles from my house. So my dad and I spent a lot of time. Back then, I didn't really even start driving until I was senior in high school. And so you only had one car, and so you made it do. And again, so my brothers and my sister would. We would all kind of share a ride whenever we could. And like I said, my mom, I don't even think she even learned how to drive until my youngest brother, Joe, was born. So, it was just, again, times have changed a lot.
No doubt about that. You went to an all-boys high school, but what was the social life like for you as a teenager?
Oh, social life was great, and I've always, I couldn't have asked for a better education, and how I ended up at Rockhurst was, after I got married and we moved to Kansas City, and we came by Rockhurst, and I told my wife, I said, if we ever have sons, that's where they're going to school. She said, oh, really, going to an all-boys school? I said, yeah. I said, I'll tell you what, your social life is great, and now is, like I always used to tell kids, if you can't get a date going to Rockhurst High School, it doesn't matter where you're going to go to school. But and that's kind of how it was with my high school. We had a couple all-girls schools that were not close by, but close enough. In fact, they tore Latin down, I think, in 1977, and they moved it out east, and now it's called Cathedral Latin, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin, and they combined with a girls' school. It's like kind of like a lot of the all-boys schools did back there when they couldn't survive, just with one sex. But no, my parents were the best. They, again, it was family was number one, and actually when I went to college out here at Kansas State, I was the first one to kind of leave the neighborhood, to leave the family, and the first one to go to college. And that was fairly tough on my dad, but, it all worked out.
So you're getting towards the end of your high school years, and you realize that football is going to be the thing. How did you happen to get recruited and eventually end up at Kansas State?
Well, I had about 4 or 5 offers, and, I visited Rutgers, and then Don Lawrence really was the guy I always considered. Don, he had coached for the Chiefs and coached in the NFL for a long time, and he went to Latin, and I always credit Don with kind of getting me out here and changing the course of my life. And he was coaching at Kansas State at the time and recruiting in Cleveland, and saw me on the basketball court. To be honest with you, he always told people, he said, I recruited him off the basketball floor. When I came to visit Kansas State, it was my first time I was ever even on an airplane. And I remember flying into Kansas City and then taking a puddle jumper at that time from Kansas City to Lawrence to Topeka to Manhattan. And I wondered, where am I going? And it was a real cultural shock for a kid from Cleveland. But having been at Rutgers the week before in New York, and then going to Manhattan and walking down the street and people saying hello to you, and then the most friendly people I ever met, it's East Coast and Midwest are totally different areas when it comes to being social. And when I got home, I told my folks, I said, I'm going to Kansas State. They said they were friendliest people I ever met. They didn't care where I was from, and you could walk down the street and people look you in the eye and said hello, and you're not used to that growing up where I grew up.
That is absolutely correct. I had never left New England until I went to the University of Kansas, and I remember getting on the elevators and young ladies would say hello and start talking with you to you, and I'm like, wow, I'm scoring here. And of course, I was not. These people were just being friendly, but it's a completely different deal.
It's completely different. That's what I try to tell people. Like I said, I've been in New York the week before Rutgers. We went to the city, and and growing up in Cleveland. Cleveland's kind of I always tell people, Cleveland is an Eastern Midwest city. It's got more Eastern culture right there on the border of being an Eastern city. And when you walk down the street, you don't look at people, you don't say hello, you just keep walking.
Right.
And when I got in Manhattan, Kansas, I'm going, wow, where am I?
Now, from a football standpoint, what was the change for you adapting to college football?
Well, I loved it. And then basically, it's like, and you can talk to any of the guys who ever played. It's more about the relationships than it is about the game. I remember games, and the good games you played, the bad games you played, the good times you had, the bad times you had, but the characters that you're around every day and from all over the country and you know, when I got there, you know, that